Hello there and welcome back to The Closet Historian and back to my studio for another crafting project. Now I have been known in the past to make a couple of rather intricate beaded necklaces, and I find, like sequining, this is a task that really occupies a good 70% of my brain, and then I can't use that gray matter for anxiety, which can be exceedingly helpful. And seeing as I had a rather stressful week and a half this past week and a half or so, for reasons that will eventually down the line become clear, I needed just this sort of intricate little project to focus all of my extra energy on. But let's go ahead and get started. I'll show you what I came up with while trying to bead in order to keep the brain bee buzz away. And this is just a modification of that earlier style that I've made here on the channel before, so I'll put a card up to that video here if you'd like to watch me replicate the original version of this necklace. And for this necklace, I also start by making the figure eights. Although instead of asymmetric with a smaller loop on the top and a larger loop on the bottom, these just have identical small loops intersecting with 4 beads in the center. I will be using size 3, size 4, and then size 6 check glass fire polished beads, of course in the cyan color today. This is this red. And then I have size 15 Charlotte cut seed beads, which is a real shame because I really wish I could use size 11s. I didn't have any size 11 seed beads that were in this color. I only had size 15s, which are very annoying because about half of these beads my beading needle will fit through and the other half not so much. And as you can see, I've made 4 figure eights already, but I need to make 3 more. I did want to practice a little bit before I demonstrated how to make one of these, and I am using the Miyuki beading thread in black for this, which is a nylon thread, I believe. Then I'll be using 2 beading needles to do the bead weaving on these figure eights. These are, I believe, size 10, but I just picked these up at Michael's, and I will link the exact beading needles I use below. I'm going to grab about an arm's length of thread here, maybe a little bit longer, and I'm going to thread a needle onto each end of this piece of nylon cord here. And I'll begin by stringing on 4 size 3mm check glass fire polish beads here, like so. And I'm going to take this last 4th one and feed the other needle through it as well, using it to lock the first 3 into place into this little quatrefoil that you see here. This is the technique I'll be using to create this entire shape here. Again, if you've seen that first iridescent green necklace of mine that I've done in this sort of style, you know exactly what's about to happen here. But basically, I'm just going to be threading a bead onto each needle and then locking between a 3rd bead where both needles pass through. So I'll thread a size 3 onto each needle here and then lock those with a size 4. Now with my right hand and my right needle, I'm going to be creating the inside of the loop, and on my left hand, I will be stringing slightly larger beads that help create the outside of the loop. So my right needle is always going to pick up a size 3, but the outside needle in my left hand will pick up different sizes as we go. So I'll pick up that size 3 on my right needle, and I'll pick up a size 4 on my left needle, and then again lock with a 3rd bead another size 4. And I've just gone ahead and done that twice. Now I'm going to go ahead and still pick up a 3 on the right needle, but pick up a 6 on the left needle, and then again lock with a size 4, and do that again. Pick up a 3 on my right needle, a 6 on my left needle, and then lock with a 4. I'm going to go ahead and do that 3 times for the top of my loop here. And you can see because the outside beads are larger and the inside beads are smaller, it's creating a nice curve to my shape. Then I will switch back to the 4s. So again, the inside needle, the right hand, still gets a size 3, but the outside needle goes back to a size 4, still locking with size 4s. And I'll repeat that sequence twice, just as I did on the first side of my loop here. And after this, I'll just pick up 2 3s, and I'll just untwist my needles here. And instead of locking these with a 3rd bead, as I have been doing, I'm going to lock them in between one of the first 3s that I threaded onto the first quatrefoil. And again, this is the sort of thing that's extremely hard to explain. It might just be better if you put me on mute and watch what's happening, because it's hard to describe what's going on. It's like trying to say a knitting pattern out loud, which I don't think that there are knitting patterns that are done in audiobook form, but that's sort of what it feels like I'm trying to do here. But once I have closed my loop by stringing both needles through that original 3 on the side of the quatrefoil, I will thread both needles through to get them arranged onto the other side, sort of the diagonal from where I just left off. So threading these through some of the original quatrefoil beads so that I have a needle coming out of either side of the bead diagonal to the last one I locked in. Oof, you see what I mean? Trying to explain this out loud. It's good for numbing my brain, but honestly, I think me trying to explain it might be good for making you wish you had a way out of yours. But I'm going to start a new loop down here. But we are using that same 4 beads as I used to start the first loop as the start of the second one. So I'm just going to string on 2 3s, lock in a 4. Then I need to string on a 3 on my right hand, and then a 4 on my left needle, lock again through a 4. You get the idea. I'm repeating this. I also created a handy dandy cheat sheet for you because, again, me trying to explain it. Is this wise? So here's what I'm doing. If you need to just pause this and look so you can get an idea of what the heck I'm trying to say. In general, I'm just sitting here beading a necklace while I was waiting for news of something. So I just didn't want to think about what I was waiting to hear about. And therefore, I was stringing beads instead. And honestly, it's hard for me to keep track of what I'm doing when I'm doing it, let alone when I'm trying to explain how to do it. So sorry. This is not a beading tutorial. This is a walkthrough of what I did. Because honestly, if you can replicate anything I do after my explaining it, yeah, it's more down to your skill than my teaching. And then I'm going to thread one of my needles back up to the original loop so that I can put some seed beads in between the threes along the inner side of the loop. And this really helps to keep it in shape and tighten it down. So, of course, I'm again using size 15 seed beads. Just use 11s. It's much better for this in general. And some people are always surprised when I say that seed beads have sizes. I promise they do. If you type in size 15 seed beads or size 11 or size 6 or 8, they're all different sizes. The larger the number, the smaller the bead. So I think about a size 15 is probably the smallest bead there is. I do have a few that are so small that I cannot even use a beading needle on them at all, so those are a real bummer. But again, I did mark where these seed beads go in that little diagram as well, which I will link to over on Pinterest. I'll have that linked below for you if you want to see it in static without me rambling over the image. And those are marked in blue here on the right-hand side of this little drawing I tried to make up in Photoshop. Again, graphic design is my passion. It's not the world's best patterning, but I'm doing what I can here. And once I have looped seed beads through that first side of the figure 8, I will use my other needle that I kind of left chilling in the middle here. I'll thread that one through to where I need it to be here on the bottom loop, and again, string on seed beads in between each of the threes down here, just to help give this a little bit more tension and hold the loop in place. Then I'm going to thread both needles through the central quatrefoil that holds the figure 8 together until the pieces of nylon string are right next to one another, and then I can go ahead and tie them with one another to tie this shut and tie this off. I will then grab both ends of the thread, however, and then cut them so that they are even and I can thread them both through one needle. That way I can just weave the end of this thread back through a couple of the beads just to hold it into place instead of just cutting it right at the knot. I don't know, this just makes me feel a little bit more comfortable, so that's how I always finish these off. And again, making multiple passes with this thread through these size 15 seed beads was a bit of a nightmare. Use 11s, please. Do as I say, not as I do. But here is my finished figure 8. Again, I need to make another 2 more of these so that I can have 7 to work with for my final necklace. But I also want to make some little rosettes to go in between my figure 8s as well. So let me go ahead and get started on those. I'm just going to thread one needle onto a piece of string. Again, this string is probably about an arm length long. And I'm going to thread on this pattern here. So 1 seed bead, 2 size 3s, another seed bead, and then 2 teardrop beads with the small end of the teardrop facing one another. And then repeat that again, and then at the end, it's just 1 seed bead, 2 size 3s, 1 seed bead, and 1 more teardrop feeding from the large end to the small. Again, just look at the pattern and you hopefully will see what I mean. But this is like a string of beads and then you loop the needle back through to create the little rosette. This is, again, extremely similar to the first necklace, although in the first necklace I think there are 8 teardrop shapes, and here I only used 7. Loop the needle back through and it starts to pull into this little circle, the little rosette that I will use to further embellish my design and have hang out in between some of the figure 8s. And I made a mistake here. I had threaded some of my teardrop beads on the wrong direction. Oops, easy enough to do. Again, part of the reason that this really takes up so much of my brain power is even when I'm using as much as I can, I still get things wrong and I'm constantly having to work my way backwards and forwards again. So 3 steps forward, 4 steps backward, that sort of thing. I do hope you're all having an okay week so far. I'm bringing this to you on Monday morning, so it can't have gone too wrong yet, right? I know everything everywhere is a disaster, literally, for the most part, so I hope that all of you are above water, quite literally, so whew, yikes. More things to try and not always have to think about, because I think if we did, we'd all go a bit mad. But at the same time, we can't not think about them, if you know what I mean. But just finishing off, again, following that little pattern. Honestly, it's easier to look at the graphic than it is to listen to me. And eventually I come to the other side of my circle here, and I just need 1 more seed bead, 2 more 3s, And then I'm going to lock through the original seed bead, 3 seed bead sequence over here. And I'll pull my needle through that so I have both ends of the thread going through there, like so, to close off my little rosette. And again, I'll feed my needles both into the center so that I can tie this off and tie it shut. And I will weave some of this cord back through before I slice it off, even after I've knotted it, because again, it makes me nervous. That's right. Sometimes these threads will find their way out from the beads that you weave them in after the knot. And if that happens, you just cut them away. But I've never actually had that happen to me, although I don't wear these necklaces every day. They're not exactly everyday wear, sadly enough. If only we all had occasions worthy of sparkly necklaces every day. Some days, you just gotta run to the post office and other very mundane errands. Although of course, doing that while dressed a bit extra is more fun for everyone involved, honestly. So, perfectly acceptable in my book. And I did go ahead and make 3 more of these little rosettes, so that I had 4 total to work with when stringing my necklace together. And to start connecting all my pieces here, once again, I decided to just draw you a diagram. That'll come up later because, really? I'm taking another length of thread. I'm actually going to put one of these little springs to hold the end of that in place while I work. And I'm going to string up through the first size 4 on the outside of my figure 8 here. Hopefully that makes... yeah. And I'll grab a seed bead, then a size 3, a seed bead, then a size 3, for a total of 3 size 3s. That's right. I will then thread my needle through 2 of the size 3s on a rosette here. I'm basically just creating a little circle to connect the rosette to the side of the figure 8. You can see what happens here on the first set that I've connected. I will then repeat that in reverse to make my way back to the figure 8, and again thread through the first size 4, and then in between these size 4s I'll just go ahead and thread on 1 size 3, 2 seed beads, and then 1 size 3 again. And of course, finding a size 15 seed bead that will actually string on over my needle was proving difficult. Now I'm going to feed back through the original size 4 over here to lock that, and then I'm just going to thread my needle through several of the beads up to a midpoint in the figure 8. Again, reference said drawing that's about to pop up on the screen because hard to explain. So one of these size 4s at the top, the one that's just before it switches to size 6s, I'm going to thread my needle out through there and string on a seed bead, a size 3, a seed bead, a size 4, a seed bead, a size 6, a seed bead, 2 size 3s, repeat that in reverse, and then go through the same coordinating size 4 on a new figure 8 on the other side to connect them. Oh my goodness. Again, follow said pattern, do as I say, not as I do, and do as I pattern before you do as I say. And yes, for some reason, I had run out of colors and I just chose orange for the teardrop beads, and they look a little bit like corn kernels or something in this illustration, but again, what are you going to do? I was just making this up as I went along, by the way. I just connected the first 2 and then repeated that again and again. So you can do anything you want once you've created little motifs like this and tied them off to connect them together. You could actually use like jump rings and chain if you wanted to connect everything as opposed to doing more beadwork. As in all things creative, it's up to you. The variations you want to do with whatever beads or materials you have on hand. But I used all 4 rosettes, and then on either side, I connected the last figure 8 just by doing little lines across, again, sort of mimicking the style that I had done for the cross pieces of the rest of this. But I just wanted to make sure my necklace was long enough, so I added these extra figure 8s on the side, like so. And this is about the perfect size for my neck. So if you're using Czech glass Preciosa fire polish beads, and you have the same size neck as me, make this exactly. Seems unlikely. I did go ahead and cut 2 about 2-inch lengths of a antique brass colored chain here. I'm just turning a couple of beads on matching head pins to serve as the ends of those, just to make the ends of the chain a little bit prettier with some little dangles back there. And I will attach these chains using giant jump rings to one set of my figure 8s here, and then I will attach lobster clasps to the other side so that I can wear this choker, which is basically a wide choker at this point. But I will of course add some floopy drops and like pendants hanging from the rest of this in just a moment. Like so. My camera is about to cut out, I think, after I attach one of these. And we lost camera. The battery kept running out. This, if I were to take this footage and not speed it up, and like all the footage I did manage to capture, it'd probably be like 2 or 3 hours long. So just be thankful that I've cut this down. Imagine me trying to explain this pattern that whole time. Now I'm going to take another strand of doubled thread this time. And I'm going to take my needle here and just start threading on my floops. You can, of course, thread on whatever you want for your floops. If you wish to copy mine exactly, I will have a high-res image of this necklace that you can reference below. Again, it's kind of like, do you want me to list off every bead? Probably not. I think a lot of beading videos, they don't have a voiceover, and now you know why. As I'm speaking to you, speaking of me being slightly more stressed than usual, I do have to finish 2 videos tonight, because I'm actually going to be out of the office again this week, traveling once again. So, and the good news is the only flight available that was nonstop for this next trip I'm going on leaves here at 7:30 p.m. and doesn't get where I'm going until midnight, which means I have to try and figure out how to get the rental car at midnight. I'm very excited to figure that one out. And when I was younger, I really didn't mind flying. I actually quite liked it. And I do, of course, think it's a scientific marvel that it's possible, but now that I'm older, I find it really uncomfortable to be on a plane, and also I feel just a little bit queasy the whole time. So any flight that's longer than a few hours, I start to get pretty miserable, unfortunately. Which is a shame, because I like traveling, but I don't really love flying anymore. I wish I had my youthful exuberance for it, but I sadly do not. But I've added 3 layers of extra floopies here, just using a few more beads each time to make those a little bit longer, of course. And then I have to repeat myself on the other side. I'm stringing these so that they hang down from various size 4s within the figure 8 designs. And once again, the struggle of this was finding size 15 seed beads that will go over my needle. Even though this needle is tiny and flexible, the size 15s are even tinier. Of course, after I finished this necklace, like the next day, I got the size 11s in this color in the mail. But it was too late at that point, wasn't it? Yes, it was. And just finish this other drapey bit over here. I used 3 floops for the center 2 sections, and then just 2 floops for the sides, for the other side of that, I suppose. And then at the end, I didn't add any floops at all. My back figure 8s that are on the back of my neck received 0 floops. Sad. But I'll thread my needle back through here, up into the center of this figure 8, and then I'm going to go ahead and thread on probably I think it was 11 of the size 15s. Again, if you have size 11s, then it will probably only need to be 6 beads. But I had to use many to create a centimeter worth of beads at the top there of seed beads. Then I'm going to go ahead and thread on 1 size 3, 1 size 4, 1 size 3, 1 size 4 for about 4 or 5 sets. And then I will do a teardrop at the bottom and feed my needle back up through the long set of beads to create a singular pendant drop here from each of the 3 central figure 8s. Once again, hopefully you see what I mean. I'm using a size 8 on the bottom of this. Oh, I forgot to mention that we needed size 8s. Again, I'll just list the materials below because, again, my teaching is suffering. How many did I use? 11. I think it was 11. Good luck finding 11 seed beads that fit this needle. Have a good time, kid. Poor past me, struggling with these seed beads. They're beautiful, but they seem to require the world's smallest beading needle, which sadly I did not have on hand. And then I'll just string my thread back through that central bead and just pull that taut, but not too tight, otherwise it won't have enough drape to it. And my little dangly drop, my drop of sparkling red beads is complete. And I will make another right here in the center as well. If I can get my needle to feed through, to where I need to be. Back to the center of this figure 8, and I'll repeat that same process for another drop here in the center, and then again I'll repeat everything that I did on this first side onto the other side to finish off my necklace. Just finagling my last floop over here. You can see I'm restringing it here, probably because I made a mistake. I think I can keep count. See, I can barely keep count for one necklace. This is why I can't knit a whole sweater, especially in a fun pattern, because I lose my place constantly. This is about as close to knitting as I get, and it's pretty far away. But after I've tied this off, I will go ahead and thread my needle up through the figure 8 once again. I'm going to loop around another piece of thread, just so I can tie a knot up here. Then I'll again thread through my excess and slice this off, and my necklace will be finished. And thank heavens, because you've got to be tired of listening to me by now. I apologize. Hopefully I will be more rested one day. But here's my finished necklace. I'm quite pleased with how it came out. I've had these red beads sitting around for a while, ever since I probably made that first necklace, because I wanted to make another in this lovely, almost garnet ruby shade, which I feel like goes with Victorian things ever so well. And here is my finished red glittering glass bead necklace on. It's a little bit more petite than some of the other versions I've made. I know this seems quite dramatic and bold for some people, but for me, this is almost, a little bit more pared back. I'm very pleased with how this came out, and even more pleased to have had my brain occupied by something other than what I was trying not to think about. And despite this being a beading technique that I've shown here on the channel before, I hope you still enjoyed seeing how this project came together today, and thank you as always for watching. And I'll be back with more sewing, vintage fashion, costuming, and crafting real soon, so I'll see you then. Bye!